Hello, welcome to another episode of The Healthy Enterprise. My guest today is Rousseau. Riel is a business strategist who works with professionals at the operational level as well as executive roles. He has a real passion for business, and his extensive experience in helping business owners, CEOs, founders work at building their business, streamlining processes, and positioning themselves to grow. And he comes with a wealth of knowledge, and he's here to share with us today. So let's take a listen. Hey, Riel.
Hey, Heath. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. So you're going to tell us a little bit about fractional management, but give us a little bit of a background on you first.
Okay, my technical background, my education's in engineering. I used to design bridges and roads and that kind of stuff for a living. Seems like a whole other life ago. But the last 20 years or so, I've been involved in businesses, from startups, entrepreneurship, operational management, executive leadership development, and more recently, fractional consulting and services.
All right. So, lots of people have heard that term fractional. It's not brand new, but it's still relatively new. Like, it's not been around for that long of a time, has it?
No, it hasn't. I think we probably started seeing fractional at a C-suite level, executive level, around COVID time. And I think as people got accustomed to working remotely, and the tech industry exploded, then this concept of having executives involved on a fractional basis became popular.
And why would any owner or founder, why would they be attracted to this type of fractional C-suite employment model?
Well, a couple reasons come to mind. The first is the obvious one. So you get the expertise of someone at the executive level at the table with you for a fraction of the cost, right? So it's not a full-time executive wage. Often it's some kind of a retainer type of a structure. And the amount of the retainer, or the structure of how it's set up, could be dependent on your budget. That's one reason. It's about costs, but getting that expertise at the table. The other reason is I like to use an example of, let's say, in the health and biotech sector. Mm-hmm. The founders are typically scientists, and they're really visionary people, strong in the research side of things, product development side of things, but typically wouldn't have that skill set of how to take that product to market, where a CMO would, or a CEO, the business acumen, the financial modeling acumen, like a CFO fractional would.
Right.
So it's actually bringing that skill set to the table, where the scientist, for example, wouldn't have that skill set.
Right. And that comes back actually to a lot. Quite often it's like you're just trying to get people who are good at what they do to focus on doing what that is, as opposed to, splitting themselves up between different roles and only being able to do a partial of each one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about doing what you do best. So, we see it a lot. I use the health and the biotech industry as an example, but I've seen that across the board from all kinds of businesses. So the reason the people start the business in the first place is they're maybe good at a certain service or a product idea, and it starts growing. And then they're like, wow, all of a sudden now they need org structure, they need job descriptions, they need all these pieces.
Right.
And so you can hire a consultant, or you can bring in a fractional executive to help you.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. What's the difference between that? Like, why would you choose a fractional C-level person as opposed to a contractor, as an example?
Yeah, there's a couple subtle differences. So let's let's say you engage a consultant. Usually there's a finite scope. Here's what I want you to do. And based on that scope, the consultant gives you a price. And then when you vary from that scope, there's, cost creep and that kind of stuff. And the consultant engagement typically has a start and end date. When you start looking at a fractional kind of engagement, it's usually, that retainer model. So what's your budget? How many days? How many hours? Whatever the structure is. But also it's about having some decision-making authority and some accountability. And usually that fractional executive that you bring in is at the table with you, talking about priorities, helping you determine the best direction for your business and getting you ready and growing, right? Ready for growth and growing.
Right.
So it's a subtle difference, but it's a big difference. So the biggest difference is they're engaged, they're part of the team, they're not external like a consultant advising in.
Right.
They're actually within your team. And then they're also usually have some decision-making authority and accountability.
That makes sense. And they're bringing that sort of that level of experience as they've sat in these roles previously, and they have the experience behind them to bring that kind of accountability and responsibility that you need at the table at that level.
Yeah, and there are lots of great consultants who have that expertise and skill.
Right.
But it's just deployed differently.
Right.
Right.
Right. That makes
Whereas
sense.
a fractional executive is really part of your team, grows with you. Right. And really, at some stage, if they're doing their job helping you grow, you'll either hire them full time or you'll be ready to hire a full time executive.
Yeah, be in the position to do that.
Yeah.
And I suppose you get you could so you're just not having to spend that high end salary for somebody you don't need full time. You just need them for certain aspects to address certain issues and along the way. And then at such time when you are actually ready to take that plunge, you can go on to actually have a permanent position for that role.
Sure. And sometimes it's front loaded. And what I mean by that is you might start off as a fractional COO and come in and help organize performance review processes and budgets and financial processes, whatever kind of the business needs. Mm-hmm. So there's some upfront work there that you're a little bit more involved. Mm-hmm. And then you might move as the business kind of gets those processes in place. You might move to more of a advisory, sit at the board once a month, executive coaching type session.
Right.
So the engagement can move and ebb and flow as the business grows.
Right. I guess another scenario would be maybe hiring a junior person, but then again, there's maybe some pros and cons to that as well.
Yeah, sure. If you're a growing business, budget's a concern. So there's a lot of tendency to hire someone junior. They come in often with a lot of energy, he or she, they're gung-ho, want to help. They're doing their research, using chat, figure out what they should be doing. But there's still a lot of, they lack the experience. So
right.
You're filling the gaps. So as the business owner, part of the objective is to offload some of your workload, right? And also bring expertise in. So hiring a junior doesn't always accomplish that. You get the energy, but often it comes with some hand-holding and
right.
Just takes longer. Right.
Right. A little bit of long. Yeah, it's a long game, that one.
A bit of a longer game.
Yeah. Right. Now, you've been doing this. You've done this multiple times in your career. So forgive the pun, but what's your sweet spot?
Oh.
Get it? Your C-suite spot?
My C-suite spot. That is really good. So my C-suite spot. For me, it's about, I think I can add a lot more value if I'm sitting at the table as part of a team collaborating and helping owners prioritize and actually really helping them figure out what they do best, and help them figure out their sweet spot,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then I can come in, help them get structure in place. I like to use some agile methodologies in our strategy work and our consulting work, which means 3-month sprints. Pick a few items, pick the most important priorities, and sprint those, and actually roll up my sleeves, get things done, add value, help the company get ready for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that part of it. I enjoy consulting too. I do a fair bit of that, but it's just a different. You can help and you can add value, but all you can really do is make recommendations as a
Right.
consultant, right? Suggestions, recommendations. Identify the risks if they don't implement your recommendations.
Right.
But then,
Whereas if you brought into the table to sit with the CEO, the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, the CSO, you're sitting with the C levels. There is a certain level of accountability, and there's you've been obviously vetted, and you're qualified to sit at that level, and they're going to listen to you, right? That's
right. You're bringing your certain skill set to the table, and you have a CFO there, and I I would weigh heavier on the COO side
right.
and the CSO side, and some CEO, but usually chief strategy officer would be my wheelhouse, where I'm helping an organization figure out their high level strategy, how to align their different business components to that strategy,
Right.
and roll that into implementation. And continuous improvement is a big thing. Yeah.
Um, any is there some red flags that if a CEO is working away, and what kind of indicators to a CEO, if he's paying attention or she's paying attention, would indicate that it's time to look at some sort of fractional support?
The obvious ones are burnout, right?
Oh yeah, good point.
You're wearing so many hats, and really you're at the stage where the things you want to do and the things you do best, you're not doing anymore, or you're doing very little of. And you can sometimes see that in sales, or if you're slow to deliver on timelines and milestones. If you're in the product development side of things, and you're missing milestones, and you're struggling to get your product to market, those are some indicators to watch for. Um, but usually, the conversations I have with CEOs or founders, they're just they're at the stage where it's not burnout, but they're feeling a lot of pain,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they've tried an operations manager or a lower level employee to help them, and really hasn't worked. So
Interesting. That's good.
yeah.
That's good advice to be
Mm-hmm.
aware of for sure. Now, on when you're working on strategy work, what are some examples of some of the strategies that you actually help businesses with?
So yeah, we've got there's a few different levels of strategy. So depending on the business and where they're at in their growth cycle, um, often we'll join a business, and they're a year or two in, but they haven't really formalized their vision, and they're finding that they're struggling with employee accountability. And so it's about creating this vision and higher level strategic plan,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And then engaging their employees in that process, so that they start understanding the why, and why their particular role is important in the big picture of things. So that's a pretty common one. So get some, grassroots vision, strategic plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we'll often help companies from there with um, implementation plan or a roadmap. So, like I mentioned before, using some agile terminology, develop a 3-month sprint, and usually developing org structures, job descriptions, performance evaluation processes, those kinds of things are often missing in a fast growing company.
Right.
Right. Some of the burnout triggers are often associated to that because that executive, the founder, hasn't been able to push and delegate the accountability down.
Right. Right.
Right. So putting structure in place to do that
Right.
is really common. Yeah.
And much like parenting, it's almost like you need someone else to come in and dictate some of that stuff and give people tasks to do and assign responsibilities, because they're not going to listen to maybe the CEO like they would maybe listen to a third party who they don't know very well, but it's just delivered in a different way, and you come at it with a very sort of objective approach, right?
Right. And I think a lot of founders, they refer to their business as their family and their employees as family. And it's always harder for a founder. Let's face it, most of us don't like to have those hard conversations, and change is difficult. So that's where someone like a fractional C-suite, CMO in the marketing side, CSO, COO could come in and help put those standard operating procedures in place and have those hard conversations
Right.
with some of your employees that maybe you don't love doing
Right.
or you're not great at.
They can take the heat on your
They
behalf.
can take the heat. You can blame them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not emotionally attached either, right? That's
yeah,
the other
they're
side of it.
they're there to help you grow and do what it takes to grow.
Yeah.
So,
right on.
so that's pretty common, performance, setting up performance processes, budgeting. We often come into a business where there aren't the financial processes in place. So you're executing, or coming up with ideas, and there's no tool to really measure the financial impact of those ideas.
Right.
So it's easy to come up, not easy, but you come up with a great idea for your strategy. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Then it needs to be an attachment to the financial side. So
Right.
what's the cost of that, and
Yeah.
what are the benefits?
And without
financial
that,
model planning and budgeting and department performance budgets and those kinds of things.
and it's hard to grow without that stuff. Like that's the stuff you got to nail down
But
if you want to take it to the next level, right?
Yeah, like at some point the cash flow will catch up to you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, very common, especially in the tech, apps and tools and AI, and
Right.
it's very common now so you're a founder, you're building your business, an employee comes to you and says, "Hey, I'd like to use this tool. It's only $9.95 a month." Right?
Yeah.
We recently helped a company figure out their tech stack. We're still working on this. And the last count I had, they had 65 different tools and apps.
Oh my God.
Throughout their organization, right? And some of them do the same thing, personal preference, but just over the years, $9.95 a month here.
Yeah. That'll add up.
Or
and those are cheap. $9.95 a month is a cheap one.
Yeah.
Some of them are like $600.
And then people share the passwords, right? And
that's all I could think of. 65 apps, 65 passwords, 65 logins, times however many staff. Wow.
So like, what is your strategy? What does the financial model look like? What's your tech stack look like, right? What's the best practices in your industry for tools and processes?
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things. So a fractional CSO, CMO would bring those kinds of things to the table for you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I don't see why people don't do this more often.
It's definitely starting to be more popular.
Yeah.
With growth businesses.
Yeah.
And I don't know why either. I kind of love it. And I think you do get someone at the table who's committed and feels like they're part of a team.
Well, the other side of that too is like for yourself, if you're working with, probably a few different companies, maybe half a dozen at the same time or over a period of time, is that you acquire quite a range of skills and knowledge and experiences because you're working with a variety of different people learning other ways that other organizations are doing things. So you're kind of actually collecting quite a bit of intellectual property, along the way, and you can bring that experience and those techniques to the table wherever you go.
Absolutely. And often I'll tell a client at the beginning of engagement, like they're the subject matter expert in whatever their product or service is, and I'll just sponge off them as much as I can.
Right.
But then I take all my other experiences and with other kinds of businesses
And apply it.
Yeah.
Um,
and a lot of, for those who work with me, I think they definitely see a little bit of the engineering approach. It's like process, structure, which I think is important, because innovation and creativity is amazing if you put some structure around it. If you don't, right. I often say creativity without structure is chaos.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
So that's kind of the angle I like to take when I'm first starting an engagement, is let's sponge off each other and get your business ready to grow.
Yeah. Right on.
That's
well, great. This has been great. Do you have anything else to add that we missed out on, or have we covered pretty much all of it?
I think we covered all of it. I think, depending on the C-suite. So like I've mentioned quite a bit, the CSO role, Chief Strategy Officer, COO, Chief Operating Officer. The CMO role is also an important one, where, again, if you're a scientist in the biotech industry, or you're an engineer running an engineering firm, you don't necessarily need to upskill yourself to become an expert marketer.
Right.
You can bring in a fractional CMO who can help you with your marketing strategy, your brand story, all of those different components, and help you implement your strategy, right?
Yeah.
From that perspective.
Yeah.
Get your story out there, get your brand out there. And that's your world.
Yeah. Right? And again, bringing a extensive, background of working with a variety of different, people, products, services, industries. Yeah. You can really tap into all that stuff and bring it along with you. And you always have some nuggets to go to rely on and to work with, that tips and tricks and things up your sleeve. Yeah. As a marketer.
And I find more in the marketing side of things than maybe the COO or CSO. You can definitely go to chat and you can ask chat to give you a marketing strategy for a plumbing business.
Sure.
And it will give you one. But if you don't have the expertise then to look at that,
right,
and determine whether it's good or what pieces need to be adjusted, then you are just shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
So.
And chat won't roll it out for you.
And
make sure it works and hold people accountable and all that. Those are, like you said, those are the hard decisions and the hard conversations, but chat ain't going to do that for you.
Yeah. AI has its place and it's a great tool and saves us all time. I'm not disputing that. I just think where a fractional CMO can come in is help you take that.
Yeah.
That strategy and make it a reality.
Implement it. Yeah.
And implement it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great, man. Great conversation. Awesome. Thanks for being with me today. And I wish you all the best.
It was fun. Let's do it again. Let's
go. Okay. We will for sure. Okay. That was super interesting. The ins and outs and ups and downs of fractional management. I could see that being a very valuable option for a lot of businesses who are, especially in growth modes, you're not always positioned and ready to take on those types of roles until you can financially sustain it. So this is a great alternative. I think I really like the part about where bringing someone on who has worked in several different organizations, maybe at a fractional level, can bring quite a wide range of experiences to the conversation. And I think there's a lot of advantages to that. So until at some point a person actually need a full-time person in that role, but in the meantime it's a way to ease into it financially and managerially. That was interesting. I really appreciate Riel's perspective, and one thing I know about Rial is he loves business. So thanks to him for joining me today. And thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more. Have a great day.